What up, dog?
That reminds me of the massive
What's that?
that cup that you're drinking out of. Is that a tumbler without a lid?
No, I think it's I think it's a mixing glass for like
a malt shake.
Yeah, and what are they called? Martinis and whatever. Drinks, cocktails.
I said like a malt shake, and you
Cocktails.
said yeah, but then you went to cocktails.
Hey, I'm sure you could do a shake in there.
Anyway, it's a chrome cup here, and it made me think of the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen when he gets the big chrome plated cup of hot cocoa when he arrives at the North Pole, and yeah,
it's like a Moscow Mule.
It's almost Christmas, Jay, according to Commercial America. I had some guy just start ranting about how capitalism was going to end America the other day. And
oh yeah,
I thought it was and I even tweeted about it, but I was like, even my liberal ass was like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, this is one of those things I feel like people get annoyed with it. Like, you know what, capitalism? It's like, yeah, what about it? It's just like,
you're a big fan of capitalism, aren't you?
I am. I'm a fan of the principles.
Yeah,
I mean,
big fan.
Look, anything can be done in a shitty way. You know, you can take advantage of any sort of system that's in place, but the core fundamental elements of the ideology is, I feel like, is a good thing.
Yeah,
something that promotes healthy competition, promotes advancement.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's just when people do shitty things with it, just like with anything.
Yeah,
Christianity, it's shitty. No, it's not. It's just done some shitty things.
Old people
are shitty.
Yeah.
No, just they drive slow sometimes.
My grandparents irritate me more than they used to, and it's one of those weird things. Like I think we've talked about this before, but as you get older, you become an adult. You realize that your parents become people. They're no longer really parents,
yeah.
And that also happens with your grandparents. And it's like you never do it. I never do it out loud, but I would love to call them out on some of their shit. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I do it all the time.
I'm sure you do. I don't have that. I don't have that relationship with my. It's hard to explain my relationship with my grandparents. They're just so. They're not old school in a way that they're like angry. They're not angry, but they're just so like well respected that no one talks back or down to them or challenges anything they say. It's just out of pure respect. We let them do what they do, and there's no challenging that. So I don't even think I've ever had an argument with them because it would just be over with them looking at you and putting the fear of God in you, and you would shut down. I
mean, I've never had like full on arguments where it's gotten like heated with my grandparents. I mean, and there are certain conversations that just take place where you're just like, I'm just not going to involve myself in this. Or sometimes I'll just leave. I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. I'll see you guys later. But no, I've had heated debates and whatnot with my parents for sure. I don't necessarily know if it's like an age thing specifically. Here's what it comes down to sometimes. And I think you can probably relate to this. I think a lot of people can relate to this. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with me thinking I'm smarter than anybody or whatever. Listen, I pay attention to what is happening in the world. What I'm trying to say is I use the internet.
You keep your ear to the ground.
And a lot of people, older people around me, they don't use the internet. So when I have conversations that are just completely devoid of any sort of factual information, I have a really, really hard time. And it's hard to put yourself in that position. Like, I remember that we got in a political conversation one time with my family, and Kayla was fact-checking things on their phone, and they were just like, didn't know how to handle it.
But there's no way that they changed their ideology based on that. Like, they still stuck to what they were doing, even though facts were presented to them.
No, I mean, I think... Well, I mean,
how many times have you actually been in that type of argument, and an argument about ideals, about policy or religion or whatever? How many times?
Typically with my family.
No, I'm not done yet. How many times have you been in those interactions and then had them reverse their thought.
There've been some occasions.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I've established how I like to approach those types of conversations with especially people in my family who have differing opinions. It's that I just want to have a conversation where people explore all sides, at least keep an open mind. And I think they know that. There are times when they do hold things very closely. They get emotional about certain things, and that's just to be expected. That's human nature. But it was a bizarre thing. It was a bizarre thing to see happen and take place. And honestly, even that whole notion, like we're still getting used to this whole notion of, walking around with the internet in our pocket, being able to look things up. But even that is starting to become a little bit more difficult to do. You will have people say, well, what's the validity of the website that you're looking at? Or
fake news.
Exactly. And
attack on the media.
As much of a joke as it is true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of fake ass shit out there, and there are people that can skew things in a certain perspective.
It's like that number of like how many ads were informed by Russia on Instagram and Facebook during the election. Like that number was outrageous. Also love the idea that like sometimes the internet just doesn't go. This is kind of a different topic. The internet doesn't always go my way, like, because we stay in our bubbles, And so, like, something else came out. It was like 53% of Trump supporters say that they would still support Trump if he was found guilty of, doing those deals with Russia. Like, the majority of Trump supporters were like, yeah, well, he should still be in office even if that's the case. And it's like, holy fuck.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a team mentality. It's all of that, which is sort of silly. It's funny how, we grew up with the internet. We didn't grow up with it our entire lives, but we grew up learning about what the internet was and the power of it. It is sort of funny how it's kind of reverted back to just like nobody really knows anything. Right? Like we can look things
That's
up.
what I was going to say. Like the internet should be there to inform people, but it's like some people just continue to stay stupid.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything, really. Everything has the ability to become polluted and tainted and this and that. It's the same thing I say all the time. Just be cautious of where you get your information from. Basically the same thing that I said in my Max Landis video that was supposed to be taken down. Just be cautious of wherever you know
why I put it back up, right?
I thought I made it public again. Did you make it public?
Oh, yeah.
I think we had a conversation about it.
I made it public because it's one of our highest earners.
It really is.
Yeah.
People like that.
When you took it down.
Or they hate it.
When you took it down, I saw on Social Blade, there's a big red, like negative 2,000 views or whatever.
Oh, really?
And then I put it back up and then it said plus 2,000, whatever. I was like, fuck.
That's hilarious.
Let's get that back.
It's funny we even have a Social Blade. I mean, obviously we do, but
I think Social Blade's like built into YouTube now.
Is it really?
I think when you go to everyone's, as far as I know, maybe it's just because I have the plugin. I have the Social Blade Chrome plugin, so maybe that's just me that can see everybody's. But I hate the new YouTube layout. By the way,
you're not a fan of it.
I'm not. It's just annoying. And plus, when you go to Creator Studio to edit your playlist, and it at least for me, on Windows,
you don't really mess with any of that.
It reverts back to the old layout anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just excessive. Like it's just going around a lot of corners to get to the same places that you used to get in less steps.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
When I first started paying closer attention to YouTube, subscribing to channels and whatnot, I remember always hearing these people that I followed online complain about these different things like, oh, YouTube is having this issue and people aren't getting things in their sub box. And I used to think like, is it really that big of a deal? And now that we're more involved on it, like things like that do annoy me. Like I saw the other day instantly on a video that's probably might break 200 plays, maybe, was like, this video is not suitable for advertisers because you said fuck in it. It's like, all right, come on, guys, really?
I haven't seen anything like that.
I got one on one of those ones that I uploaded my little music bite things that I was doing.
Are you sure? Are you just talking about?
I saw it on there. It had a yellow exclamation point. It said,
no, they all get those. It's not.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah.
Is it just like this is?
It's just a new policy
in process.
You just have to request review for monetization. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, that's weird. Why is it
like pretty much every video that we get does that, and I just go ahead and click it.
Oh, okay.
That's why you've probably never seen them before.
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that just happens all the time.
I usually just upload the video and I go away. People want to watch it.
You sure do.
Yeah.
You don't check the description for typos or anything, do you?
Not really. No. Well, my descriptions for my videos are always pretty straightforward. It's like Jay reviews this album. That's pretty much all there is.
Which is funny because you're so wordy when you do podcast descriptions.
Am I really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't read your descriptions. So
if I do the description for weekly, it's maybe 2 sentences.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I try to throw in whoever I'm talking about on the release rundown portion of the show because hopefully somebody's searching for things. Because that's how for instance, one time I was looking like, hey, what other podcasts have Mark and Christian been on besides Schmoes Know Stuff? And I just searched for it on iTunes and found like these other podcasts that they had done guest spots on.
Film Beef.
No, well, Film Beef did come up from Mark, and they were on an episode of Ari Shafir's Skeptic Tank episode. Yeah, on one of those episodes talking about, I think, the Oscars, maybe? I don't know.
Do you think we're going to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year?
I don't know.
We're kind of close.
I don't know. I mean, we have 2 months to get 200 subs. It's weird because it fluctuates in weird times. Like, there was like, I think maybe a 2-month period where we got like 200 subs or 300 subs. It was just very odd.
Because that was our goal. And the closer it gets...
I kind of don't care if we don't get it. I'm not going to be like, what the fuck?
I'm not going to question our existence if it happens, but...
Yeah. We still had a fantastic year.
I would just love to see it happen, but...
Yeah.
Clock's ticking. Sight and Sound DNs.
Yeah, I have a few videos that I'm gonna do some newer. Well, we have a lot of stuff going on. I think for the rest of the year, list season is coming up very quickly. I've been prepping my album of the year list.
Can I put
standalone singles list?
Can I put Blink-182's reissue of California on this year's album?
You could, because they essentially have enough material to cover a new album. Have you even listened to that? I haven't listened to that once.
Not the reissue, no.
Yeah.
Is it weird? Was it weird?
You have permission to put whatever you want on your album of the year list. It could have come out 10 years ago.
So I can put Don Broco on it again?
If you want to.
It was really weird for me to see... Because this was the first time I'd ever seen Blink-182's new singer during the Linkin Park tribute to Chester Bennington.
We never talked about that last week.
We can do it right now.
We can.
Anyway, that was the first time I'd seen that singer, and it was so weird to see an old man with that voice.
I think he might be older than Mark Hoppus.
I mean, they're all old men in the sense that like these guys are still talking about punk rock things and they're in their 40s.
They're still singing about girl problems.
Yeah. But
kind of a bummer, to be honest.
And it was weird to see Mark Hoppus at the age that he was. I thought Travis Barker looked awful. I don't know what's going on with him.
Well, he was in a plane crash and he almost died.
So okay.
Literally had most of his skin burned off. Did you forget that?
Huh?
Did you forget that?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Was he with Harrison Ford?
No, he was with DJ AM. Rest in peace.
He was on that plane that killed DJ AM?
DJ AM didn't die from that plane crash. He died after the plane crash.
Okay.
But yes, they were on that plane together.
Okay.
That's what got what's his name to come back. I'm forgetting his name.
Tom DeLonge.
That's what got him to come back to do Blink-182 again.
So anyway, the new guy, he just didn't look the way I expected him to look. So that was weird. Let's talk about that. The Chester thing. So
3 hours long.
It was 3 hours. I expected that.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be long.
Well, when I was watching it the first hour and a half or so, maybe the first 2 hours, they played some of their newer stuff, some of their, more calm music. And so part of me questioned if they were going to play anything heavy at all. But we knew that there were a couple guest vocalists that had yet to come out yet. So I didn't know what Ollie Sykes was going to do. But anyway,
I did not watch the thing from front to back. I've only caught.
How did you?
Random
How did
clips.
you catch it? Because you didn't watch it at all live. So if you,
I watched a little bit of it live. There was a little bit
Oh.
of it because it was like still going on. I think I was out doing something, and it was Michael and Heidi were in.
you're out of,
And I'd come home and it was still going on, and I caught a few things, and I ended up catching a few of the performances that were just kind of not cut out, but they were re-uploaded as individual things, and then I sort of just skimmed through other parts.
What was
of
your
it.
reaction to mine and Luke's reaction? Because so me and Luke were going back and forth, texting about what we were watching.
Yeah, I was sort of getting I had requested commentary.
We were keeping you up to date with who was singing what songs they were doing, everything that was going on while you were out. And what was your reaction to what we were talking about?
Well, I thought you guys were being like overtly critical of things, like which was surprising because I know Luke sort of had. Well, that's not necessarily true. I know you both can be pretty critical of music, but I just thought it was like super critical. I was like, man, this either is terrible or they are just really shitting on this.
No,
and I hadn't seen anything yet.
What I was doing, I don't think it wasn't needed. It wasn't appropriate, probably. But like, I don't like that I did that.
Right.
But I think I was just discussing music.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, listen, they were putting it out there for.
Yeah.
You were commenting on it.
I mean, it's not like I was like, this is shit. I think if we wanted to elaborate, there were comments made where I was like, oh, that harmony isn't working. And
listen,
these people sound weird.
Here's my takeaway.
It was just like random comments.
Here's my takeaway from it. Everything you guys said was 100% justified. There were some issues that went on that should not have gone on. Like simple things that they should have been more prepared for. Like they were having mic issues throughout the entire night, which is just
that wasn't even the stuff that I was really commenting on.
But it shouldn't have been an issue. It really shouldn't have been an issue. Like even certain other, I don't know. I mean, if I'm just speaking on the performance itself, it was very nice. It was very good for the fans. I thought that they executed it in a way that was very respectful, obviously for the occasion that they were coming to do. But some of it just sort of felt a little bit sloppy. Like there were like these awkward transitions of just complete silence in between certain moments that I caught.
That stuff doesn't bother me.
Well, it bothered me. I mean, I'm just giving you my take on it.
Yeah, I feel like bands do that quite a bit live. I mean, I feel like that there are some of those.
I'm definitely looking at this too in comparison to another thing that I saw very similar to this when the singer of Suicide Silence, they had a memorial for him, and they did the same thing. Different singers come out and do it, and it was on a much smaller scale, and it was done a little bit more seamlessly.
Yeah.
So that was sort of what I was comparing it to.
There were like some really obvious fuck ups though. Like I can't remember what song it was. Mr. Hahn like started off time or something like that, and Mike was like, hold on, we can't fuck this up. We got to start over. And that's when Luke made the comment, I love when big bands mess up.
Yeah.
And like, so they just started a song over because they were all out of sync. And there were a few things like that, but it was more of like we were just commenting, but it wasn't like I wasn't ripping Linkin Park. I wasn't saying anything bad about it other than like, oh, that sounds weird. I think
that was never my takeaway.
Yeah. I'm expanding for our listeners.
Yeah. It was just more or less like I was surprised about sort of what your takeaway was from it. But when I saw it, I got it. I definitely got it. I think for me, the people that I was looking forward to the most, I was definitely looking forward to Jeremy McKinnon coming out from A Day to Remember and they had done some stuff in the past before that I'd seen, and also Ollie Sykes for multiple reasons. One, because Ollie Sykes, Bring Me the Horizon, such so much heavily influenced by Linkin Park, especially on their newest stuff. He's talked about seeing them. I think Mike Shinoda told that story of Ollie Sykes being in a photo from their first show in England. And because, if I'm being honest, Ollie Sykes, as great as I think Bring Me the Horizon is, not necessarily known for his live performances, which, people can not like that and they can like that. I was just very curious of how that was going to go. Let's talk about his performance real quick. What did you think about it?
It was fine.
Yeah.
I think that they absolutely picked the right song for him to do.
Agreed.
Like if there's any song that Ollie could sound, that was the best song that they could have done.
The only other one that I thought they could have done better might have been Faint. I would have liked to have heard them do Faint with him because it's not as melodic. At least Chester's part in that song is not as melodic, and it is more screamed or yelled sort of singing.
There's a couple songs where Chester just screams his ass off, like on the Living Things album. There's a song called Victimized that Ollie could have easily done, and that song is like 2.5 minutes long. They could have thrown that in the middle there. But Crawling was the perfect song for him. There was like that thing that came out the next day about how they had like looped an older track or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What was that story again?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
You didn't read it? Luke brought it up to us.
Didn't see it.
Something about people were accusing him of lip syncing, but I didn't even really understand it. They like played his track from rehearsal.
Yeah. I mean, usually
through the loudspeaker, but he was still doing it separately.
That's the way a lot of these people who have the screaming vocals, who maybe later on in their sets they can't hit those same notes. They have backing tracks, and Bring Me the Horizon heavily uses a backing track.
That's not what it was.
But when I watched it back, the way that I perceived it is that they had a recording playing while it was being done, but he was also singing over top of it as well, which is what you're speaking to.
I don't remember it being that way. I remember
you're saying that he had a backing track from a rehearsal that was being played, but he was also singing.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just know that he wasn't lip syncing, and that like it was proven that he was doing it there.
Yeah, there are moments.
I don't remember what the confusion was.
Yeah, anyway. I saw that response from people, and it was sort of. I get it to people that were like, oh, his mouth is not in time with other things that are going on, but there are moments when he's obviously clearly singing. It was just, it's just not as big of a deal. I think people get so accusatory with stuff like that. It's like, he's not singing. It's like, who cares? Like, it's fine.
Yeah, but I know that if I was going to be a guest vocalist for Linkin Park, I wouldn't want to be the only singer that came out.
Right, of course.
Because everyone else was, they have the singer for Civil Twilight, and they have, what's her name that does the vocals on that one song, Heavy, Kiara.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have all these really great singers that are coming out, and that's another thing we talked about. The singer of Civil Twilight had to have the lyrics played for him. I thought that was strange. But whatever. Not everyone has to know every word of Linkin Park. But
that happens a lot more than I think people realize, especially with bands that have such extensive catalogs. When I went and saw Snoop Dogg play, he had like a teleprompter, like as if it was karaoke. Bon Iver, I just saw the Bon Iver show. He has his lyrics up while he's performing.
That's weird. Anyway, I think it's funny because, we are in a day and age where there are more Linkin Park songs that I don't know than there are songs that I do know. So I'm not acting like I wouldn't know. I didn't know half the songs that they played. But anyway, moving away from all that kind of stuff, I cried at the end. And Chester's wife came out and had a really touching speech. And just seeing all of those guys together, and then, of course, ending the set with the songs that most people are familiar with, and seeing everyone go crazy. And I really liked a really nice touch that they did was have Chester sing along with them live. And they did you see that part? They spliced in footage from another show, and so that was really great. And seeing all the guest vocalists come out at the end, and it just seemed like a huge celebration. And I'm glad that they took that approach. There were certainly the quiet, somber moments, but I think the attitude was mainly about celebrating.
Yeah, for sure.
I really appreciated that angle, and I think everybody had a good time. So
yeah, and if anybody hasn't, if you're interested in it, if you are, that's cool. If you're not, that's cool too. But if you're interested in checking out the project that Suicide Silence did for Mitch Lucker after he passed away, it's really, really good. That's how they found their new vocalist, and I think we've had those conversations off air, and I don't even necessarily know if that's something to speculate on air yet. I don't think it's time for that. But what I will say is one of the ones that me personally, I was really impressed with for that whole thing, that I would just love to see him do more stuff with the band, was Jeremy McKinnon. I thought he absolutely killed his performance.
So you're right. but the person that I was most blown away by, I thought sounded the most like Chester.
Right.
And seeing him on stage, it just looked like Chester was there. Sum 41 singer.
Yeah.
Did you see that performance?
I didn't.
It was like seeing Chester on stage. He had bleach blonde, spiky hair.
Right.
Reminded me of Hybrid Theory days. But the way I can't remember what song he sang with them, but it sounded just like him.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. So I thought the most Chester of the performances was definitely Sum 41 singer. But Jeremy McKinnon also did a really great job.
Yeah, and Jeremy McKinnon's performance, what was interesting about it is it just was, I mean, I've known this for a long time, obviously, listening to the band, but he's such a dynamic singer and diverse singer. He can bring, he was doing like some like death growls in there, which was really nice, and just had the more abrasive scream vocal that we've heard Chester do as well.
Right.
But he also, it's not similar in tone necessarily, but his singing voice is so controlled, and I really, really appreciate that. And the fact that he can do that, which is a tough skill to do, to be able to carry those more melodic singing parts with the abrasive screaming.
Right.
It was just really nice. And performance-wise, he performed really well. I mean, this is a guy.
He was into it.
But because that's another thing, too, that you sort of have to take with. There's this awkwardness. You've never been on. Some people haven't been on a stage that big before. Some people haven't performed with that band before, et cetera. Jeremy McKinnon looked like he was right at home. I mean, and that's sort of the things that I look for with stuff like that. Anytime somebody is replacing a singer like that, I'm never necessarily looking for them to just do the copycat thing, especially in a situation like that. You're just sort of paying homage to somebody in that regard. But if they were going to carry on their career, it might be good for them to bring somebody completely new with a completely different
weird
thing.
thought.
Yeah.
Linkin Park with Jeremy McKinnon.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Chester did that with Stone Temple Pilots. I don't think
it would fit, but it would be fascinating.
Yeah,
it would be fascinating. I think it would be hilarious to hear that punky, like, well, come on, guy doing all of the old Linkin Park catalog. That'd be so weird.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows if they were to carry on with the style and approach that they were going with One More Light, with the more pop aesthetic. I could totally see them doing stuff like that, because A Day to Remember have explored those sort of territories.
Yeah, they'd have to be another. Sure, that's one.
Yeah,
those are two.
100%.
Jeremy doing all their back catalog is
right.
an interesting topic in itself. But the next is, what would that next album sound like with
Absolutely.
him? That'd be,
that's what I like looking forward to, because I don't like living in the past.
But then, like, Jeremy leaving A Day to Remember, like, can you even fathom that?
I don't think he'd do that. I mean, obviously, it would be those are two big bands, right? I mean, A Day to Remember, one of the biggest band in that sort of landscape. Linkin Park, obviously, massive, massive band.
I think A Day to Remember is becoming less and less relevant, though.
I do too. They have an issue. They have an issue not being prolific enough, and especially because I don't think their last album was necessarily all that great from front to back.
I forget that it came out.
Yeah,
like
it also was recorded. Wasn't it supposed to be released the year before that? So they've. Oh, wait.
That was Common Courtesy.
I completely forgot that they just put out that album.
Exactly.
I completely forgot.
So you were thinking about Common Courtesy?
Yes.
Common Courtesy is a great album, by the way. They did have that was the album that had all those issues that you're speaking of. Yeah, they've had another album.
I forgot about that.
It
was
me
terrible.
Too.
It was terrible.
I don't even know any of the songs.
It was poopy. They put out like one single from it. I think the first single from it that I enjoyed. But yeah, I forgot about that.
Like I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Toured?
I don't know.
I feel like they didn't even tour on it.
But I mean, I don't get it.
You know who doesn't have that problem? Bring Me the Horizon.
Our Last Night.
Bring Me the Horizon. They're taking their sweet time to put. I thought for sure we were going to get something from them this year, at least a single to tide us over. But I feel like people are still excited about whatever they're about to do.
Yeah.
It's interesting, man. It's very interesting. While we're on this music topic, we talk about that video you put out the other day, your vlog. You was sort of addressed the Brave the Storm stuff, which was cool, but there was something embedded in it, and it was funny because you had talked to me about it after the fact, but it was sort of an echo of conversations that we've had in the past, and it was more directed towards our YouTube audience that maybe doesn't pay attention.
Well, it's because, like, as more time goes on, I feel like the YouTube audience knows me less and less, which is cool. And maybe that's part. I mean, maybe that's partially my fault, but I felt like it needed to be addressed. I kind of talk about it in the video, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, then that's certainly there for you. It's just I think the title of it is what the hell is Brave the Storm or something like that. But
sort of served two purposes.
Yes, it was also a vlog, so it was sort of like an open-ended conversation. And the beginning of the video talks about how Jay and I have had discussions off air about how we want Sight and Sound to be music centric. But also at the same part of it was also, and you can respond to the video, but it was also just because I wanted people to kind of start thinking of thinking differently about it, because we've also had discussions off air about how we want Sight and Sound to sort of house all of our projects, no matter what they end up being. And so Separator was sort of the beginning of that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily like this big conscious decision where we sat down and we're like mapping out and plotting exactly how things were going to go. I think part of it is just a sheer numbers and time thing. I think one thing, because both of us have been paying such close attention to all three of the sort of pillars of the pop culture landscape, I think maybe this year, maybe we noticed that there were these gaps between movies and television that just weren't existing with music. Obviously, music is far more consistent throughout the entire year. So there's just a lot more stuff to cover and talk about, whether it's reviews or just news. And yeah, I know we do these after parties sometimes because we don't have a ton of news to talk about. That's more or less because there's certain types of news that we talk about on Sight and Sound Weekly that just doesn't come up all the time. And also I think too, it makes a lot of sense just because the audience that we have, and this sort of happened, we were hoping for it to happen, and it sort of happened by accident, I guess. We anticipated the Schmoville crowd coming over because you were involved with what is now After Schmo and the Collider group and all that stuff. And we were kind of hoping like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they kind of got into the music stuff? And that sort of happened. And I think that's exciting. I think that's definitely exciting. But it's also exciting now, too, that we're getting people from these album review videos and whatnot, that maybe they now have an outlet for their movie reviews. You may be people's Chris Stuckman, and you don't even realize it. You may be people's Jeremy Johns or Schmoes, no, and you don't even realize it.
I put up like one review a month.
but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily know who that would be, but, you know, like, I think Carl, we were just hanging out with Carl, who I do Separator with, and I think you are the only movie reviews that he watches.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, those are the types of people that just don't give a shit about the movie landscape that we operate in.
You mean like Eric?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example. For the longest time, Film Beef was that for me. And I mean, obviously, I've discovered Chris Stuckman and everybody else, but
I had a girl on Tinder ask me what my thoughts were on Thor Ragnarok.
There you go.
But I hadn't seen it.
You said, damn it, there's a missed opportunity. If you were still podcasting with Phil, you wouldn't have missed it.
No, I wouldn't. And that's actually what I was just thinking about as you were talking. It blows my mind that there was a time when I saw sometimes more than one movie a week, and now I can barely get to the theater.
Well, it's fascinating because we can. I think that's one thing that it sort of proves to a lot of people is that you don't have to do that to still be able to podcast about these topics. I mean, look at somebody like Ken Knapsack who works for Collider and barely sees any movies at all.
He's just faking everything. Like,
I know.
No, yeah, you're right in a sense. I mean, but that's why Sight and Sound can always work, is because it's still just discussion and news based. It doesn't have to be constant reviews of everything, but at least particularly for movies. But yeah.
That's the other thing about it too, is that when this whole thing sort of Sight and Sound was sort of born out of me wanting to do more music stuff outside of In the Galaxy that I was already doing. And I was like trying to figure out what other music stuff that I could do. And I think, I don't know, we just sort of, that was the only thing that was established. Like, I wanted to have my own music show. We sort of just stumbled upon the rest of the stuff.
What's your response and reaction to all of the Brave the Storm content?
Just seeing it on the channel
in
general, I think it's cool, man. I think the coolest thing about it is the fact that it's a retrospective on all of that. Again, I don't like living in the past, but it was fun. It was fun re-listening, especially that first EP, because I enjoyed that EP back in the day, and I enjoy parts of it today as well.
I don't think people like it as much as I thought they would be.
What's that? Just Brave the Storm in general?
Well, I saw
or just the EP.
So many the people came out in droves for Separator, and
no.
Yes, they did.
No,
your full album has like 150 views.
First of all, the thing about Brave the Storm is not as accessible as Separator would be.
Yeah, but okay. When you compare the two projects, Separator is the more accessible. But when it comes to popularity of the
what's
genres,
established,
I feel like it's
Absolutely.
the same.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I think what Brave the Storm does is more established. Like, it has its audience already. Like, you would really have to dig pretty deep to be like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of.
Like, I don't think Separator is popular normal music.
No,
the same way that Brave the Storm isn't popular.
They're both
normal.
challenging.
Yeah,
they both challenge people for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't. I mean, that wasn't my take. I looked at a lot of that stuff and I thought that. Yeah, I mean, they're both doing great.
It's doing well on Facebook though. I've been putting them up on the Brave the Storm Facebook page, and they've been doing really well. But
yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot released at one time.
And
too.
I look at that album commentaries, and they're like an hour and 45 minutes. And I put them up just because we don't care what we put up, but
right.
Part of me was just like, man, I feel like that's a long ass time.
Well, I find that more fascinating. Personally, just as somebody that's more of a fan in general, but yeah, I think we're learning how to release music today too. We come from a place where, I mean, we didn't really know. I think that's safe to say we didn't really know a lot about releasing music even back in the day when we released music. Like, we were just like, let's just put it on MySpace and hopefully people and playing live shows and stuff like that, and people will like. Yeah, I mean, that was how you spread the word about your band. And I think today, unless you have like a marketing machine behind you, it's hard to really get discovered on stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think you guys should release these songs as soon as you can when you finish them. That's one thing that.
Oh, you mean the new stuff?
Fucking EP, just fucking put it out. Just put it out. That because
we are.
I know that's what I'm saying. Like, if you finish a song tomorrow, upload it. There's no reason not to.
There's definitely going to be like one or two that come out earlier. Like, I think that the song that's in the promo teaser that I made, I think that song's going to come out like as soon as it's done. It'll probably hopefully that thing's done by the end of the year, and we could have something the holiday time to release. But
because
it's so early though, we haven't even had those discussions yet.
Because look, I can talk about music every single week for an entire year, and how much I think about it and all this. Listen, not only me, no one knows the right way to put out music today. They just don't. If they did, it would be a much different landscape. What I can say is that and you know this, we live in a singles culture. Like, the only song I ever hear anybody talk about for Separator is the song Belated, which I think is our best song. But I'm like, hey, what do you think about these other songs? And I'm just like, you know what? It's fine. Just
right.
If you like that one song, it's fine. Yeah, I just like, because think about it. Think about this. Being super proud of an entire album or an EP, 5 songs, you put it out and people say, oh, I listened to that first song, I really like it, and nobody says anything about the other 5 because they just didn't want to spend the time with it. Unfortunately, that's the culture we live in now.
We said EP, but I think we might crank out a full length.
Do it. I mean,
I really want to. Like I even back in the day when I thought we were gonna record something else, I wanted it to be a full length. Like I want to be able to say that we have a full length album. But as we started talking about all the ideas that we have in place, and like we had a couple like, hey, we might rewrite one of our old songs and things. Yeah. By the time we finished talking about all of our ideas, we were up to like 8 things. And we also have like 3 unused songs that could just be rewritten to, be contemporary, and we would have a full length instantly. So I'm hoping that it happens. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I spent, when I first got into writing music on my own, just being able to sit down on GarageBand and do shit. That was like what I wanted to do, because I'd never gotten to release an album before.
Right.
I'd never been able to do it. And I did some things, like some projects on my own that I never released, that I was like, oh, this could be an album, whatever. And then when we finally put that separator thing out, dude, it was annoying, because we were like, oh, we got 7. We only need 3 more. But then we were like, I mean, we worked on that thing for a year.
Yeah.
I wanted to just get it out there. So then I was just like, I think EP's the way to go. and now even the EP, I'm just like, okay, let's just.
I want like 12 songs.
Yeah.
I was listening to Seoson's album the other day, like I always do. I was like, because that's like 13 songs. I was like, man, I really want one of these. It would be so great.
Do you know that I hate that Separator album? No?
Based on what?
What do you mean?
What do you hate about it?
I don't enjoy any of it.
Its existence?
That's not true. I like the song Belated. That's the only song that I like.
Why?
Because
you're not happy with what you did. You wish you spent more time on all of it.
I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it. I'm proud that it exists, but I don't think that it showcases what Carl and I are good at. And of course, it's one of those conversations where you're like, well, we're working on some new stuff, and that's really more. Bands say it all the time. Like, we feel like this new project is it.
Yeah,
it's what you said about Some Life when you heard it, and you said, I can't really tell the difference. Legitimately, Carl would come over here and he would play a guitar riff and leave, and I would send him the finished song. Today, he came over here before, and there's another song that's completely finished. He came over here, and we literally wrote the entire song together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's like the biggest difference is.
And I feel like that's a much better experience.
It is. It's a much better, like the first one was fun and it was experimental. There's a lot of different ideas on that thing. This new stuff, 100% you would be able to tell the difference. It sounds more like a band type of thing as opposed to what, to me, Some Life is 100% like you can tell it's a solo thing. It's more like hip hop inspired. Like there's beats and shit. And that existed on the Separator thing, but yeah, I just I don't know. It's fun and it's stressful, I think, at the same time, to write music with other people. But I don't know. When you find a groove, it kind of works. How is that for you? I mean, because everybody is removed. You're the Carl in this situation. You're just having things sent to you.
Our process is basically Eric and Josh are writing and recording and demoing everything out. And the 3 of us have a Dropbox with a shared folder.
Right.
And so they're throwing in, they record.
Isn't Dropbox great?
They have like a minute and a half. They'll throw up like a minute and a half project. And they'll call it, all right, here's Chasing Victory song. Here's our hip hop song. We have dumb project names for everything right now, but they'll just throw it up and I can take it and record something I come up with and send it back to them, and maybe that'll help them continue on, whatever. And so there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion, a lot of conversation between the 3 of us, even though we're 3 hours away from each other. And it's obviously not ideal in the sense that I wish we were all together doing it.
Yeah.
The 5 of us, not just the 3 of us. But me and Eric and Josh, at least for me, I think we've just been having a ton of fun working together again. And like, I think even just getting to do those podcasts together,
Yeah.
Between me and Eric, and Josh is on the next commentary where we talk about all of our unreleased demos and stuff when we were finishing up as a band. And so Josh was able to join us there. Just doing all of it. We have been having a blast, I think. At least I definitely have. And
do you feel like you're like fanning the flame of like a creative ember that just wasn't really burning? Like it's been there and you've wanted it to burn, but does it feel different? Because obviously you've been creative.
Well, it's like,
you've been creative in this space.
That was the thing. I've kind of thought about it over the years.
Was
about
this creative control?
That was the best therapy in the world for me.
Yeah.
Getting to go out on stage and, literally scream my woes. Or
how old are you? Running through the 6 with your woes?
Yeah.
How old are you?
26.
Okay.
Why do you...
I'll come back around to that. I forget sometimes.
I'll be 27 at the end of the month.
Happy birthday.
Whatever the number is of the year, that's what I am, because I was born in 1990. So in 2017, I become
that makes sense.
27. Yeah. It's easy to remember. You'll forget it as soon as I walk out of the house.
Probably.
Yeah. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, it was just the best therapy I didn't even know I had at the time, was writing and performing and all that stuff. So that's been something I've severely missed. But yeah, I definitely get to stretch those muscles. And apparently there was muscle memory. I mean, like, because I remember it took me forever to write Strike Twice. There was a bit of a hiatus because Strike Twice was written and recorded after the band broke up. That was a song that Josh and Eric recorded for me for my 22nd birthday. That was their birthday present to me, was to release that song. So that song exists outside of our career. But I mean, even that song took me forever to write because I feel like I hadn't done anything like that in a while at the time. But it just came back to me, and like that part that I released in that video, they had just sent me that song maybe the day before, and and Josh texted me. He was like, "Dude, I cannot wait to hear what you come up with." And then what you hear in the video is what I came up with, and they were thrilled about it. And I don't know, just like I said, all of it's just really exciting, and we've been having a lot of fun together.
It's exciting, and it's interesting to me. And the reason I asked how old you were right now was because I guess it was around that same age, around when I was 26, when I got out of, the marriage. And I thought to myself, I'd like to get back into music. And I had, I wanted to fan that creative flame and you're right. When you get back into that, as creative as I've been my whole life doing, graphic design stuff or now podcasting stuff and all of that, it is just a different sort of outlet.
Right.
And for you, maybe it's different because I would say with 100% certainty that you probably put far more thought and consideration into your actual lyrics than I do. So it's not even like a catharsis for that. Like I'm using it as like a journal to get things out. It's just a creativity.
Right.
Obviously because I'm making music and stuff like that too, but I'm always really self-conscious of I'm never self-conscious about the quality of what I put out. I'm typically when I finish something and I listen to it, there are times when I'm just like, this isn't working for me. And I'll usually stop before I go any further. But if I've seen it all the way through to completion, I'm pretty happy with it and proud of it. But sometimes I do get self-conscious of like, I don't, and to sort of use like the shitty phrase of this is, I don't know if people will get this.
Yeah.
That always frustrates me sometimes, but it does make me happy, especially when I see people in, I guess, the sight and sound space that are super supportive. Like I appreciate that.
Right.
Do you get self-conscious about, who I'm self-conscious about? It's more the people in my local circle. Like, cause I'm surrounded by a lot of people that, are fans of music that I know personally.
Right.
It's more like I get self-conscious about like, did you hear what Jay's doing now? I don't think I've ever had that though.
I think honestly, I don't think I give a shit.
Right.
Like I'm self-conscious of things that I have done in the past, like looking back, I could have done that. But we're at a point where I think we all just click. Yeah. And I know that whatever we put out is going to kill. at least I don't mean maybe is going to kill isn't the right language to use. I know that whatever we come up with is going to be fantastic, and because we're clicking right now,
It's going to be your best work.
it's 100% going to be our best work. I think it is going to be fresh. I think it's going to find the perfect balance of what Brave the Storm used to sound like while also being fresh, because I'm listening to music. I'm listening to Linkin Park.
Yeah.
I'm listening to Breaking Benjamin. I'm listening
that
to
Balancing Compose Your Life?
I did listen to Balance the other day, actually. I've been listening to a lot of bands that have no business influencing Brave the Storm, but will in some way.
That's when music's at its best.
I mean, I'm still going to be screaming and stuff, but I mean, I'm just going to try to approach it in a different way. But I think that we're going to check a lot of boxes, and I'm already going to be insanely proud of what we do. There's no because they're the people that won't get it never got it. So
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm already over that. Like I already know that this isn't going to appeal to these people, but at the same time, I'm actually trying to bring them over. Like I'm going to try to create some accessible crossover parts to pull them in. Cause like, my buddy, Michael Denniston, he hosts War Machine vs. Warhorse podcast, very popular movie podcast. If you want to check that out, he sent me a text the other day and said, "Hey, I watched that Brave the Storm teaser you put up. I hate that type of music, but I thought that was really good." So I was really happy to hear something like that. And
yeah.
I want that to sort of be what all of it is.
Yeah.
But
and you deal with a similar thing that I deal with, but on a different sort of spectrum. The whole thing of like, well, I don't like all that screaming. And I remember I've said it before, but Carl told me that he showed our music to somebody and was like, God, there's a lot of effects on the vocals. He's like, that's fine. It's just not for you. It's just like, yeah.
I've been getting a lot of, I get that a lot. It's, I'm not really into the screaming parts, or I would like it without the screaming.
Okay, just don't listen.
It's that. And then on the other hand, it's like, yeah, you sound exactly like Under Oath. And oh my God, really?
One thing, okay, actually two things. I have a confession to make. All the things that I bitch and complain about on Sight and Sound Music about how bands, like, they need to, they need to inform their audience more. They need to show like the more behind the scenes stuff. You guys have obviously done a very good job at that. I don't do that at all. I think I posted our first Instagram story like today.
Yeah, that was weird.
So yeah, obviously I need to get better at doing that. One thing that I want you guys to do, you need to take control of your Spotify. You can do that. You can reach out to them and get your Spotify artist account set up. There are so many cool features that you can do. Like you can post your own playlist for people. Like if I want to say to people, hey, if you like Separator and you're interested in what we're influenced by, here's a playlist of stuff. And you can like highlight individual tracks.
You were able to do that from Separator?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it. Also, we have two Spotify accounts.
You have to hook up with Spotify, or do you go through your distributor?
You send them you go through Spotify, you get a request. You have to have, I don't know why they do this, but they have to verify your Twitter account, which is strange. And then they send you an access and you can download an app and stuff like that.
Who is your distributor?
So we master, all of our mastering is done by a service, app company called Lander, L-A, if anybody out there making music wants to use it, Landr. And that's all they did for a long time. They just mastered your stuff, and it's a super awesome service. All of a sudden, and it used to be you had to go through like CD Baby, or
we use My Mind Is Elsewhere was done with CD Baby.
All that is complete horseshit, honestly. Because it used to be like, oh, you have to pay this much money to put up an EP, you have to pay this much money to put up a CD. It's not like that with this company. All you do,
I don't think we did that.
All you do, you pay for this mastering service, and if you pay the yearly fee for the mastering service, you can put up as much music as you want from as many projects as you want for free. It's completely free, and they send you your royalties and all that other stuff. So it's all done through Lander, and it's distributed through Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Pandora.
So if we did My Mind Is Elsewhere through CD Baby, does that mean we have to continue with CD Baby?
No,
because
no, you don't. And it's super weird that it's like this. If I wanted to upload a Some Life track and call it Brave the Storm, it would show up on your Brave the Storm page.
Well, I've always wondered because I know that when Confide has their artist page, but when they had broken up and they released that full length years later, it created a second Confide.
Yeah, there's two separator pages on Spotify. And it's super dumb. The first, when we released our first singles, it created a separator page for us. But then when we released our album, there's like some Swedish death metal band, and it released our album on a completely separate page. And I'm not 100% sure how to get that worked out. I probably just need to contact them.
Probably.
But yeah,
I didn't want to go to Lander or whatever and have it make a second Brave the Storm.
I don't know. That's the biggest thing I could say is I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to, I think I told you this, I could just take your tracks and just post them and pray for the best, right? That they show up there.
I mean, we could just log on to CD Baby.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I don't remember having to pay anything for that.
You don't need the CD Baby thing this is like a weird conversation we could have off air, but you don't need to log on to CD Baby or have anything to do with CD Baby in order to get that access for Spotify's like artist control page.
I get that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody, if you want to start a band, go ahead and do that, I guess.
Who was it that made that song? Was it Brody?
Yeah, Brody Koenig made a song. I haven't listened to it yet. I apologize. I don't know. Is that something that if anybody ever wanted like simple GarageBand tips, I could do a video about that one day. If anybody was interested, just like getting started with stuff. Like I meant to comment about this. He made a mistake that I did the first time I ever did it. When you publish things in GarageBand, it like publishes it completely uncompressed as an AIFF file, I think is what it's called, and it's massive. Yeah, it's a massive, massive file, and there's just all you have to do is like click a checkbox.
It's like a wave. I mean, they're just massive files for no reason. I downloaded that track.
Yeah,
and I was gonna record vocals too.
You should. Hey,
well, I couldn't. There's no percussion on it, so I was lost.
Oh, you need a percussion. How about this? How about I have those 40 songs that if you wanted to do anything with, all you have to do is purchase them from Tasty Jam.
I roll. I have all those.
I know. I'm joking.
I have every one of those.
I'm joking. I thought about going through some of those the other day, and I was like, can I use any of these for anything?
I can't scream to beats.
Well, sure you can.
I would need a producer.
Well, first of all, some of those are legitimate, just mock rock songs, so you could do that as well. Listen, we've talked about music for long enough. No more music talk here. How'd you feel about that UFC fight that you watched?
It was fun.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
I told Mitchell and Carl, I said, hey, would you guys be interested in Sight and Sound Sports? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be a lot of fun. I said, 2020. Carl and I didn't realize Carl was as knowledgeable about fights as he was. We could do Sight and Sound fights.
I don't think you know anything about Carl.
I don't think I do either. I haven't known him that long. I could probably count on my hands and feet, excuse me, how many times we've actually hung out with each other.
Yeah, it was weird. After being in Separator for a year, this was your first practice.
Sort of. Well, not this one, because we worked on our second song for this EP. So,
okay.
It was our second practice. but no, Mitchell, he would love to. You know, they essentially abandoned their podcast. They're just waiting for us to ask them to basically be our Riley and
they didn't say that.
They didn't say that, but that's essentially what they're doing.
Why?
I know.
What are you up to, guys?
I just think that they really want to be involved with stuff that we do. So if we ever have our Schmoes No live show, they could be on air, but we'd have to turn their microphones way up because they whisper. What's up with everybody whispering when they get on the podcast?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm talking to you like I don't have this fucking thing in my face.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just always loud.
Sometimes I think I'm louder when I talk on the microphone.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, it's another thing. I'm self-conscious because I'm looking at our waveforms right now, and I'm trying to match.
Well, I can separate these, so.
Yeah, I know. Separator.
How do you feel about that band name?
Separator?
Yeah.
The only issue I have...
It's hard to spell.
It is not.
I find it hard to spell.
Then why'd you pick it?
I didn't. Carl picked it. I don't name things. I just approve them or deny them.
Sounds like something you'd come up with.
No, I just approve or deny them.
The only thing I don't like about one-word band names is that when I see a one-word band name have a one-word song, I don't know which one's which.
Right.
So like when Separator released Belated, it's if someone came across that on YouTube, it's hard to know which one's the band and which one's the song.
I get it.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with Separator itself, but I don't think I would ever call something by one word.
I didn't realize until way after that it's also the title of a Radiohead song. You know how happy that makes me? Very happy, but it also makes me...
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were self-conscious of that. I was like, it doesn't matter.
That's the other thing. I was going to be like, am I another In Fear and Faith or like Moths to Flames? Like,
I don't think that stuff matters. Like,
the In Fear and Faith thing bothered me.
Yeah,
that really did bother me.
That one I get because it's like
Moths to Flames also bothered me. That's a Thrice song.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. I remember I came up with the lyric one time for one of our songs, and the lyric said "Mother May I," and Eric was like, "That's too close to the band Miss May I."
I think I've heard that story before.
That's not gonna fucking stop me from writing this lyric.
Yeah.
It's a lyric. I didn't come up with it because of that band name. Your mind. I didn't use the lyric.
You let Eric talk you out of it?
Well, it worked out.
I want to have him on soon just to talk to him about what it's like doing this whole thing again. I'd love to have Josh on, but he won't. He refuses to podcast with people. But maybe that's going to change.
I just told you he was.
I know. But you told me one time
he was. I remember asking him forever ago when his Project Little first released that first song. I wanted him and Mary Beth to come on the podcast, and he was like apprehensive about it. Like he was like nervous about it. Like he didn't know what he was gonna do, and he was just really weird about it. So I was surprised that he came on and did that with us. But I mean, he was totally fine.
Yeah,
and I think that now he knows what he's in for because now we've done two. Because we've already recorded our reunion show as well.
I mean, the real question with all this, now that you're sort of coming into the light with music now, do we need to revisit the conversation about moving Sight and Sound down to Nashville?
I think, for one, I was going to talk to you about this, but I think I'm starting to like music more. I've been like really venturing out on my own, trying to find new bands.
I left. Well, I didn't leave, but I came from In the Galaxy to Sight and Sound because I wanted to be more involved with the music or the movie space. Now you're doing the opposite. That's why this podcast is so great. This is what it's like when worlds collide, as Powerman 5000 said.
Powerman 5000. See, I like music.
Yeah, so you've been exploring some new bands. What is this? This is all we're talking about is music on this episode? What bands have you discovered lately? How far out of your comfort zone are you venturing?
I haven't discovered any new bands, but I've just been listening to albums on my own instead of listening to the same ones over and over again. Like listening to more like Manchester Orchestra, actually listening to really been listening to the 1000 Below record.
So good.
I'm actually anticipating The Plot in You. I don't remember the last time I anticipated any record at all.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, I don't remember when I was looking forward to an album.
I think you need to go back and revisit Brand New's album Daisy, because I think it has so much.
I need to listen to Brand New's record from this year too.
I think it has so much to do with sort of your journey. Like legitimately, I'm like psychoanalyzing your music taste because of your discovery of balance and composure and bands that are sort of like them, even Basement to a certain extent, but combining that with like the abrasive elements of it. There are even some like mild, I'm not going to say hip hop elements involved with it, but it's a very groove oriented album.
Okay.
Man, it's intense. It's such a good album. And you just got to spend some time with it. But because the song that they start that album off with is not my favorite song from them. In fact,
so I should skip it.
You can listen to it. It'd be fine. You might enjoy it. I never know what you like these days.
That's fair. All right, if you wanna get away from music, I have a transitional conversation before we end up on our final topic.
This is a Mr. Robot TV show recap.
I started The Leftovers with my mom,
Okay.
and I asked her to watch it with me on October 14th because that's the anniversary of the sudden departure. And here we are, like 2 weeks later, we finally got around to watching the first episode. And it's always interesting asking my mom to watch the shows that I'm into because she's very particular about the shows that she watches. I don't know why she likes the shows that she likes, but she pretty much only watches like Dancing with the Stars. She watches all the Chicago shows like Chicago PD, Chicago Fire. I think there's Chicago Med or what. I don't know. I think that's a thing now.
Was this a shared universe?
Great. It is a strip.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
It's a rhetorical question.
Grace and did I say Dancing with the Stars?
Yeah.
And America's Got Talent. That's it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can assume that her philosophy is that she prefers procedural, that kind of stuff. But I've never actually heard her say why she likes the things that she likes. It's just that's what my mom does. So I got her to watch all of Lost with me,
right?
And that was one of those things where, like,
did she enjoy it? Was she into it?
See, I don't know. Like, we watched all of those episodes together, but I feel like part of me thinks that
she just likes spending time with you.
Well, maybe. I mean, part of me thinks that she just did all that as a favor. Because, like, but that's also just my mom. Like, I don't expect, like, a huge discussion. Like, my mom doesn't consume anything high concept.
Right.
So I have to explain everything to her. So, but anyway, I don't know why I keep asking my mom to watch things with me, but I guess it's just because I like to spend time with her. But I tried to get her to watch Breaking Bad. She made it like 3 episodes. She thought it was depressing and dark, and she didn't care for it at all. So we never even got through.
It's funny because that show does take a little bit of a lighter turn where it's not as dense, I think.
Leftovers?
No, Breaking Bad. When they introduce Saul into the show.
Okay. That might be a fair point, but it gets rough. So anyway, I was sort of baffled that she was willing to do this because I don't think she's seen any HBO show. It was interesting. She was at the end of the episode, the only reaction I get was, "Okay, so I'm really confused." And I just laughed. So we haven't had any discussions about it since we finished watching it. I have no idea if she's actually going to finish it with me, but I thought it was just kind of fascinating because October 14th rolled around and I wanted to watch the show over again, and I figured I could try to get her to watch it with me too, but because she did watch all of Lost with me, and I think I somehow forgot to mention that it's created by the same guy. I didn't know if that would make her feel better about it or not, but
I've got the perfect show for you and your mom to watch.
Friday Night Lights.
At 100%.
I bet she would love it.
I bet she would too.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
We also started well, we didn't start it, but we were watching Parks together the other night, and the second that it started, she goes, "Oh my God, this reminds me of The Office," because she doesn't like The Office for some reason.
Yeah.
So I just kind of laughed at that. I was like, "Mom, it's better."
I watched Ex Machina for the second time. Showed it to Kayla for the first time. Interesting.
There's no fucking way she guessed that ending.
I think she was just more along for the ride. But second time watching it, not as enjoyable. It's obviously a great film. Obviously, it's incredible. But it's one of those movies, you kind of get it. Like, once you've seen it, I got it. Don't know if I need to watch it again. What else did we rewatch or watch the other day? We watched The Wedding Singer today. Fantastic. One of Adam Sandler's best films. Oh, I was going to bring this up on Weekly, but we could bring it up now. This news of
we're not doing Weekly, are we?
No, we're not. This news of Beyonce getting casted finally for the Lion King soundtrack. I want to do an episode soon with you. Maybe a top 10, could be a top 5 Disney songs. Favorite Disney songs. And maybe even just Disney movies in general. I think it would be fantastic.
I thought you were going to say top 10, like, animated casts or something
No.
like that.
What? No.
What do you mean no?
Legitimately just Disney music, because I've got some deep cuts that I appreciate. Do you remember when McDonald's used to release the Disney mixtapes?
I think so.
They released these things called like hero songs, and it would be like all these heroic Disney songs. They did one that was like, I think, friendship songs.
I feel like I remember that.
I wore those out. It was great. I think you got them for free if you bought like a Happy Meal.
I'd love to have a brief version of this conversation right here, right now. A song that's always stuck out to me, I thought it was fantastic, was sung by, is it Meg, is the female lead in Hercules with the brown hair, purple dress.
Okay.
So she sings that song, no chance, no way, I won't say I'm in love.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one, but okay. I was going to say my deep cut pick was also from Hercules, and it's Go the Distance.
It's a good one.
That's a great song.
Big fan of a Goofy movie. So both Powerline songs. I don't know if those count because they aren't. Okay, they count.
Is You Got a Friend in Me? Can we consider that a Disney song because it was in? I don't even know if that song was written
that
before.
released?
I don't know. Before Toy Story, I don't know. I legitimately don't know.
It depends on that.
Yeah, we'd have to figure that out. He's yawning, everyone. It's late.
Sorry.
It's 1:23. We're 1, 2, 3. All right, we're gonna wrap it up soon.
It's actually not that late because we actually just fell back. Like, well, okay.
Oh yeah.
Wait, that is late. It's actually 2:30.
Right.
Like if we were recording this a day earlier, it would be 2:30 a.m. right now. But because we fell back, it became 1:30 a.m.
Unless you're Luke Jaggers and you live in Indiana, and they don't believe in that there.
I thought I legitimately went up to my mom the other day and was like, did Trump forget about daylight saving? Because I remember that happening at the beginning of October.
Yeah. You know what? In all honesty, the other day, actually this happened twice. I was driving to work and it was raining outside and it was like way darker than it should have been. And I was like, did the time change?
Right.
On a weekday? Like, and I just didn't know it. That would be like the worst presidential move, that if you did make the daylight savings time day on like a work day.
Yeah.
And it's like, because it always falls on the weekend. I feel like because they're taking that into consideration. We don't want to fuck with people.
It's always a Saturday night. No, I remember, this is how I remember it. It might not be the case, but I remember last year it being very early because I was very pissed off about it. But yeah, I legitimately asked my mom, did Trump forget?
Yeah.
So no, it's next weekend. Okay, well that's good.
Back to this Lion King news. I was having this discussion. I think I talked about it with Luke, and I had speculated with a few other people. This news of Beyonce actually getting cast in this role was something that had been speculated for quite a while before it was actually set in stone. I have a theory that the reason this took so long was because they were 100% in negotiation with her as to how involved she was going to be with the actual music of this film. Do you think that's a safe assumption to say? Because she's obviously just on another level of stardom when it comes to her music involvement.
It's possible, but I don't know if that's what was happening literally a week ago.
Right.
Like, because the more we learn about the film industry, we realize that when stuff is announced,
that people are sexually harassed. That's what we're learning more and more about the film industry.
Oh, no, what? That's not where I'm going with this.
Sorry.
No, I think I'm realizing more and more that when things are announced, we're finding out much later than when it was actually planned.
Okay.
So it's actually very possible that Beyonce was rumored all this time because she was picked
right
at that moment.
Officially, yeah.
And we are just now finding out about it.
Like the official release.
But that doesn't mean that what you're saying didn't happen 3 months ago when Donald Glover was announced. And so, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely part of the case. But I I don't know what there is to negotiate. I feel like Disney should want Beyonce to do all of it.
Right.
Like, do as much as you can get Beyonce to do. And I feel like that's the only way Beyonce would be a part of it. It's like, hey, if I'm going to play Nala, like, is Beyonce going to say, I'm going to play Nala, but I'm not singing a fucking song? No. She's going to want to be on display as well. So
from a music business perspective, a lot goes into that conversation. Like,
I'm not saying that it's not something that they have to work out. I'm just saying I feel like that they would always be on the same page as 100%. Far as they want her to do what she does best, and so does she.
If I'm purely speculating, and that's all this is, but I'm using what knowledge I have of her and her career and her artistry and whatnot. If I had to guess, and I'm also remembering too, Nala in the film, and there may be some new songs here, but she didn't have a ton of singing parts in that film. Obviously, the big duet with her and Simba, but so, why only use her for that would be my first statement. Second statement is, if they're going to have somebody compose new songs or just rearrange songs, I would give her that Elton John role 100%. She is very, very, very involved in the production of her music. I mean, you look at Lemonade, how diverse that album was. Just the decision making alone is incredible. Also, with that being said, I think, like, I would love, I don't think a character specifically sang Circle of Life. Wasn't it just a song that was being played?
Just a song.
Like, that should be her. The other thing I will say is, if she is singing and if she is helping compose the music, just judging by her career, she likes to have 100% control.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, man, I think it would be silly to, like you said, not have her be as involved as possible, especially because, I think that alone could make the movie stand more on its own, as opposed to just like a beat. And a lot of people are discussing that right now. Like, I don't know if you picked up on that, but like, people were really excited about this film being made and coming out. And now that it
was Beauty and the Beast, not beat by beat the same as the animated,
and
but
same for Jungle Book. Jungle
Book is a different departure.
Okay,
it's not beat for beat. No,
but it's just like, why are people having these conversations now? Like, obviously, I don't know. It's just kind of strange. I love the casting for this film. I love it. Except on second thought, I would have loved for the Migos to have been the Hyenas. I thought that would have been amazing.
I don't think Favreau wants to be. I mean, again, with Jungle Book, because Jungle Book is not beat for beat,
right?
A remake. I think he's going to take the same approach. I think the only obligation that they have for Lion King is the songs. But like you said, I think that there is an opportunity to, whether give Beyonce an extra song or give her Elton John's role, what have you. I think that is there, but the only obligation that he has is to make sure that all of those classic songs make it in this version, which is also, again, not something he did for Jungle Book, because I don't think he had to. They did a really stripped down, like, really quick bare necessities scene, but that was it for Jungle Book. So, like
a Frank Ocean stripped down.
It was just like,
get Frank Ocean to do
Mowgli
some songs.
is just like beating on Baloo's stomach, and that's the percussion, and then they're just humming bare necessities, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
From what I remember anyway. But yeah, this news, like, I'm obviously excited for it. I'm thrilled.
Right.
But when it finally came out, it's not like my emotions changed, because I assumed it all along. I assumed it all along.
Yeah, even if she wasn't casted,
sometimes,
even if they cast somebody else, I would have been like, still,
right.
Donald Glover enough. Was
Mandy Moore? I would have actually loved Mandy Moore. Kelly Clarkson too. I think they both could have.
Yeah, Donald Glover's casting in that role immediately got me excited. I mean, the fact that they're doing it in general gets me excited.
So sexual harassment.
You want to talk about this?
I do.
I actually do want to bring this up for a second, because I was thinking about it the other day. All this news continues to come out, and it's good. I think that it's coming out. I thought to myself, should we have been talking about this more? But then I thought, and I want your take, but I thought about it and I was like, you know what? We had this in our own backyard, sort of, so to speak. We kind of said a lot about it. We went pretty far in depth. Not that we can't talk about it more, but what's your reaction to all this stuff coming out now?
So I think that we could probably recycle the conversation. Like,
yeah,
as in, there's only so much that we can say.
Right.
And I'm not using that as an excuse. Like, I'm not saying that this doesn't need to be discussed. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we could have a very similar version to what we've already said about anti-Signor, is what I'm saying.
And I would agree.
But this isn't going away. It is opening so many.
Apparently they're doing it like WikiLeaks style, because I think there was somebody came out the other day where they were like, oh, we're going to be releasing more next week.
It's insane how Hollywood as I knew it all these years is crumbling. And I think I'm going to say, okay, here's how we can make the conversation a little bit different. I'm going to say something that I don't think anybody else has said.
Okay.
Has the guts to say. At least anybody decent. But a lot of my first instincts, a lot of my first natural thoughts are that it kind of hurts.
Yeah.
The people that it's conflicting when you're like, man, I really am a fan of what this guy has done, but he's a monster.
Right.
I don't think that. I mean, there are certainly people that probably don't have to have that thought. I think the second that they hear Kevin Spacey is a monster, they disregard everything he's ever done. But I'm not gonna lie, some of my first thoughts, particularly with Kevin Spacey or someone like Bryan Singer, I can think for a second, like, man, that one movie he made really did mean a lot to me, though. So it's a lot of those thoughts, but that. Again, I'm just saying that that's sort of where my human nature takes me. But there again, what they're doing, there's no question that it's horrific. Like that's not what I'm.
That's one thing that Brendan Schaub said with this whole thing is because there is always the natural inclination to at least say, like, well, before I rush to a and this is a good thing to say, before I rush to a judgment, should I at least get all the information that I can.
Right.
And the one thing that Brendan Schaub said is don't get it twisted. This might be a witch hunt, but we're finding witches.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So I'm not saying like, yeah, Kevin Spacey is a monster, but did you see his performance in The Usual Suspects?
Right.
Like, I'm not saying that like we need to remember those performances to get, like, I'm just saying that my mind instantly goes. I guess the better way to put it is that like, maybe I'm afraid something like this is going to come out about one of my real heroes.
Yeah.
Like in the way that it came out about Bill Cosby. Like I can't imagine what it would feel like for me if I found out all of these allegations going on with Spacey, Singer, and Brett Ratner now.
Right.
I can't imagine what it would be like if Tom Cruise is next.
Yeah.
That would be so painful and so hard for me to believe. And I think that's something that that's interesting to wrestle with. And again, I know that there are plenty of people that don't have to do that, particularly women.
Right.
There are plenty of women in Hollywood who, again, are hunting the witches. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that there are women that as soon as Spacey comes out, they go, we are done with you. We are burying you.
Right.
And we are putting you away and we want to forget. Like, I commend those people, but just to be completely honest, sometimes I'm going, man, I really like.
Yeah.
Why him?
Human reaction.
Why him?
Well,
but there's no doubt. I'm not making any, and I'm certainly not discounting what any of the victims have to say.
No, not at all.
That's not at all what I'm doing. But I just can't help but do that. And again, like I said, I'm afraid of it happening to someone I really, really love.
Well, I think the sociological exploration of this is fascinating too, because we're literally witnessing and seeing human evolution before our own eyes. And what I mean by that is we're starting to see and have conversations where we're analyzing our own morality. And it's just as simple as things like questioning how you treat individuals and how you talk to individuals. you know, I've heard some conversations on podcasts of things, you know, who have been not necessarily skeptical, but just sort of exploring this whole topic of like, well, where is the line? Like, am I not allowed to flirt with women? You know, stuff like that, which is an honest conversation, I think, to have. But then there's certain things like, it's like, well, is it, you know, if I just walk up to a girl and tell her that she looks beautiful, I should be able to do that. And it's kind of like, I get that in a sense where it's like, that's something that we've all always known, the chivalry of just going up and saying and complimenting somebody. But then I think like, maybe that's not okay. Maybe people don't want to be approached like that. And as regular as it may seem, maybe we need to analyze our own morality and say, maybe people just don't want to be put in awkward situations like that. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I wouldn't just go up to some stranger and be like, man, you are, because what if you just never know what people are going through.
Right. It's funny because there's been a lot of that as well, where I like think back on previous relationships that I've had or encounters that, like, because I'm trying to figure out what the levels are. And there's obviously no question. Everything that these people are being accused of is horrifying and totally has crossed the line. But there are times when I think about, like, I wonder if that girl did feel awkward when I told her she looked beautiful.
Yeah. And that's a broad example.
Well, I mean,
but we can talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just use that example, and I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I've done that before. I remember sitting.
I was trying to put you on blast.
I was sitting in my neighbor's driveway, and I was in 8th grade, and I saw a freshman walk by, and I thought she was really cute, and I wanted her to like me. So I told her, I was like, by the way, I think you're really pretty.
Yeah. Well, let's explore another thing, because it was about somebody who had been sort of accused. I'm not going to go into who it was, because I think there were just some unconfirmed things that were out there. But regardless, they were talking about how this individual was kind of a ladies' man, and he was known. Yeah, he was single. He was known for just being a guy out on the prowl. And I thought to myself, and they were talking about how he might interact with women and flirting and this and that. And then I thought to myself, well, how do I interact with women? If I were to see a girl and I thought that she was attractive, my first interaction with them would literally just be to have a conversation with them like a normal human being.
Right.
Let's just reduce everything down to that level. Just approach people like they're fucking human beings and talk to them like they're human beings.
Right.
That might be the safest and most logical thing to do. Like, it doesn't, you know, and I'm not trying to make anybody out there feel who might have a specific approach to getting women. I'm not trying to make people feel uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, like, we just don't know what other people have been through. And I just think that might be the safest thing to do.
Is there a level of just kind of blowing people off, though, at the same time? Like, let's say a girl's on Tinder and the guy's like, hey, babe, wanna fuck? Can't that woman just be like, this guy's an idiot, and then not think anything of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's certain people,
and I know that's obviously different than like a personal encounter, like in person.
I'm sure there's people out there that could just write that off and that not be a big deal. But let's call that person like they are. That's kind of a shitty thing to do. It's kind of a douchey thing.
I mean, I'm describing a douchey person,
absolutely,
and I know that. But
there are some people listening to this. It's like, oh, what's wrong with that? I'm just trying to be upfront. Okay, well, that's not. No, I don't like it. I don't want to be friends with that person.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So it's just sort of, and that's what I mean by like social evolution. Like we're sort of learning, you know, how to do interaction with people.
Yeah. I
think on an everyday basis. Perfect example.
It's funny because I think that, I don't know if we've had a ton of on-air conversations about it, but I've had so many conversations about how to interact online, especially with things like Tinder nowadays. Like, it's so difficult, but even like back in the day with AIM a little bit. But it's just sort of fascinating that all of these things that are coming up now have to do with personal communication.
Right.
Like, it's weird how I was so worried about like what it was like for the modern generation to become date online. And because there's online predators and things like that, but this was always happening.
Yeah,
we just never acknowledged it, and so
life is in a magnifying glass right now.
Yeah, and now you're seeing things like Twitter, slowly but surely, I think we'll be making policy changes. That way, online behavior will have to be managed much more strictly. But I think we're slowly but surely. But I mean, like the past few weeks have just been mind blowing.
Yeah.
To see how completely different Hollywood has changed. And I think it's great.
Well, I think it's equally as fascinating because of what we've witnessed.
Yeah.
Because these are people who are established in an industry who have been there for a long time that you could easily write off as saying like, oh, well, these are just people who are old dogs doing some shitty things left over. But no, the thing that we
the George H.W. Bush stuff. Did you see all that?
The thing that we dealt with was from somebody who should know better.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sick of giving people passes. Like I had that conversation with somebody that I know personally that was like, I mean, should we really have to hold, George Bush to a standard? Yes. Yes. Every human being should be held to a standard about how they should interact with people.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's like that going back, and we're going full circle here. If I hear my grandfather say something, and this is an example, not obviously the same grandfather, but if one of my grandparents says something distasteful or racist or whatever,
yep,
I'm not gonna blow it off.
Yeah.
No, that's fucking unacceptable.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, and again, it's. And I don't think that's being, distasteful or being like ageist or anything towards a certain group of people. Everybody, I was about to say everybody has the same circumstances. That's obviously not true. But I think we should just hold people in general to a higher standard, regardless of who you are. You want to talk about being anti-sexist, anti-racist, homophobic. Expect the same out of everyone and how they treat people.
Right.
I think that's just the best way to do it. But
I was fascinated today, and I didn't really get to look into it a whole lot, but Jessica Chastain said she tweeted something about on the offensive, like against Bryan Singer, and I thought that was fascinating. 'Cause I'm like, you're the villain currently in his X-Men franchise. Like, he's not directing Dark Phoenix, but he produces Dark Phoenix, and so I've been thinking a lot about like what's it like on set for these people, because like right now Bryan Singer like is directing Rami Malek. I wonder how the set of Freddie Mercury is going. Like that's got to be. It's nuts. Brett Ratner has been put on hold with all his Warner Brothers stuff. His Hugh Hefner biopic is on hold because Kevin Spacey was fired today officially.
I remember, after all this had happened, the other day I went on Netflix and House of Cards was the main thing on there.
Oh, really?
And I was like, you serious right now, Netflix? You couldn't have run like... You could have run like a little algorithm here to make this buried a little bit more.
Well, he's been officially fired now, so.
Well, that's good. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a tumultuous time. Just treat everybody well. That's really all I have to say. Listen.
Take a break.
One more thing, then we'll take a break, and then we're going to do something a little bit strange. We're going to do our Mr. Robot recap because we forgot it and we're running out of time. So we're going to, I guess, attach this to the after party. Why not? We'll just do it. And it'll be its own separate thing, too. But last thing I want to talk about before we take a quick break. I went to this concert this past weekend. I talked about it on my music show. I want to know from your perspective, like, what did you think about me going to this concert? Were you just like, finally, maybe Jay will stop talking about this guy a little bit less?
I think I had literally zero thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even realize that you were going until like the day of. I think we had
with Ryan Uchi.
We had a conversation. I thought about that. I was like, I wonder what Jay and Ryan are doing right now.
We hung out with each other for all of 5 minutes.
Was Shelby with him?
No.
He was by himself?
No, he was with Anthony.
Oh, okay.
That was a great show.
We talked about it when we recorded After Schmo earlier in the week, and I think the only thought I had was I had two thoughts. One of them I shared with you. I couldn't believe that you sat down for a show, and then I realized you were where you were. And then the second thought was, I just think it's so weird that Bon Iver could be anybody's favorite artist.
You know what's hilarious? So the opening, it's hilarious that you said that. It's the opening band for him is an artist by the name of Errol Flynn, and he plays this very atmospheric sort of.
I think I know who that is.
Spacious, like synth pop music. And it was really good, but Kayla turned to me and said, "This is no one's favorite band." But
that's how I feel about Bon Iver.
Well, what's really interesting, what's really different, and this is exactly what I talked about on my music episode, is just, and I'll reiterate it here for anybody that didn't listen, is that there are fans of things, there are fans of bands and artists and whatever. Listen. This is the type of fan that I am of this guy. I have read books about Bon Iver.
Yeah.
I have done extensive research on his albums, how he makes his music, his life.
He's your Bruce Lee.
I mean, there are people out there that are fans of music and artists like they are of Star Wars, where they read into canon, where they read into, the production images that are on set.
Kanye is the Star Wars of music.
I mean, he can be, but the real idea here,
or maybe Elvis Presley.
The real idea here is that there is a story behind just listening to the music and even what's going on with the lyrics, and that is what is appealing. There is a mythology, and we talked about it was one of the first episodes we ever did of Sight and Sound Weekly. But there is a mythology behind artists and behind music, and that's what I'm going to be exploring on More Than Music. That's why it's called More Than Music, and that will be the first episode. Will be of Bon Iver. There's a story that I connect with way beyond his album. I've never given a Bon Iver album above a B+ before, ever. In fact, Bon Iver, his
classic example of not knowing what Jay thinks about anything.
Bon Iver albums, I don't even think that's you made the joke. You said, oh, you're going to that Volcano Choir concert, and I texted you back. I said that I would rather be at that show because his album he did with Volcano Choir, in my opinion, is the best thing he's ever done. But there's just more to that. And that's the stuff that I connect with even more. There are elements of his life that I relate to. The fact that he left his hometown and that's all he ever wanted to do was break out of his small town, be in a band and all this stuff and make it big. And once he left, all he wanted to do was come back home because he missed it so much. And that's something I can totally relate to. And yeah, just stuff like that. But I'll talk about all that next year for More Than Music. But
it made me think about when I saw my favorite artist live for the first time after like 8 or 9 years of waiting, and it was one of the most disappointing shows I've ever seen, period.
Yeah. Everybody made that joke about...
Thanks a lot, Cove.
Sorry, I had the sniffles. Everybody made that joke about me crying at the concert. Like 5 or 6 people were like, "You're probably going to cry."
Did you?
I didn't. Kayla cried. I didn't cry, and the reason that was, and I think
why did Kayla cry?
Something about the music just being so overwhelming.
Ambiance.
The light show, his music builds like these epic moments. The reason I didn't cry is because, do you remember, not necessarily spoiling things for you, but do you remember researching like Lost so much to where some of the more emotional moments of it were just lost on you a little bit?
No.
No pun intended. Okay. Well,
I was always very emotional when I watched Lost.
I said this on my music episode, and it is not a joke. I have watched every single interview that Justin Vernon has ever done on YouTube that exists. I've watched so many of his live performances. I knew every single beat for beat moment that was going to happen at that concert. Like when they were tuning, I'd be like, "Oh, he's playing this song next."
Yeah.
So I just didn't have that sort of resonance for me.
You're like, what's his fucking name? Ken
Knapsack.
The Boy Scout court, Tony Romo. You're like Tony Romo calling all these NFL games this year. He knows all the plays before they make them.
There you go. That's exactly what it's like. A big shout out to the guy that was sitting in front of me at that concert. I didn't tell this story. So he, listen, I know there's a lot of new music fans out there listening to Sight and Sound. If you like a band's album and they put that album out 10 years ago, and they have since put out multiple albums from that, you probably shouldn't go to one of their concerts if you like one album. This guy, I swear to God, was at this show. Bon Iver's first album is a singer-songwriter, guy with an acoustic guitar album, very accessible
Hector loves it.
To a lot of people. And a lot of people came to him for that first time. He's made albums since. It came out 10 years ago. I guess this guy thought that he was just going to play all these songs.
It's like if I thought I went to a Linkin Park show, they were only going to play Hybrid Theory.
He played an hour and a half and maybe played 2 songs on that album. He was on his phone playing Words with Friends the entire show. And the second his biggest song, Skinny Love, came on, which was the song he closed the set with, he put it down and was celebrating. I was like, fuck you. Get out of here.
Did you tell him to go to heck?
I was just annoyed. And he was standing in the aisle. What the hell's up with that? It was also disappointing because so many people were dressed like me. And it really bothered me.
Jay's not as unique as we all thought, guys.
Beards, flannel, boots, denim. Nobody vaping, though. I didn't see anybody vaping. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll do our Mr. Robot thing.
Dope.
The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more Sight and Sound goodness.
Ticonderoga pencils. The original fidget spinner.
I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about these Mr. Robot episodes that we missed talking about.
Well, I'm sorry, because I can't talk about them. Because all of my notes on these shows were in my other phone that I broke earlier today.
Oh, yeah?
So now everything's lost on me. I don't know what happened. Who's Mr. Robot?
Well, here's the thing. Listen, let me just, first of all, if you're still with us on an after party episode and you haven't watched Mr. Robot, just leave. We'll see you later. If you are watching Mr. Robot, then hang out with us. And if you're on a standalone Mr. Robot episode, then that's fine too. Whatever. We have been pretty high on this show so far. The first 2 episodes. I think the second episode particular, we said that it was one of the best episodes that we had ever watched for the show. Episode 3 completely departed from the first 2 episodes. We went way back in time. You know how I feel about going back in the past. I don't like living there. But we were shown things that were probably relevant all the way back to the season 1 finale. And sort of we saw this time span with Bob.
You mean the arcade?
Yes.
Standoff.
We saw the introduction finally, at least within the time table, of Bobby Cannavale's character and Tyrell Wellick. Your thoughts on this whole idea of the show even doing this, Sam Esmail doing this? Did you like it? Did you appreciate it? What did you think about the episode?
So there's a couple things. Actually, we should preface, by the way, maybe you can get this from the title, but we are lumping episodes 3 and 4 in this discussion, by the way. So forgive us if we are talking about an episode that you've already kind of heard enough about, but we're talking about the most recent 2. So with episode 3, the Tyrell-centric episode, what I find interesting about this, I actually alluded to this type of episode, I think it was last week on Weekly, when I was talking about the governor, how The Walking Dead handled the governor episode. So, okay, it was in reference to Stranger Things and the whole 11 episode that we didn't particularly care for. So what's interesting about this, and people might call me a hypocrite or whatever, but okay, it also just comes down to which one I prefer. I thought that this was interesting in the fact that if season 3 of Mr. Robot continues to do things like this, it makes me feel better about where we were with season 2.
Okay.
It makes season 2 feel more exciting to me. Like, oh, this was going on. Like, instead of, I remember experiencing season 2 and there was a lot of like, where's Tyrell?
That they would just go places for 2 or 3 episodes and not return back to them. Yeah.
Okay, give us Tyrell. What's Tyrell doing really? Like, when are we going to see him? I remember that being a lot of the conversation when we were watching that. Seeing this sort of explanation makes me feel better about it. Like, it makes it like, now if I rewatch season 2, I can picture Tyrell in the cabin, and it's just, it makes it more interesting. It makes me feel a little bit better about what I did not like about season 2 so much. So that's good. It's also just because I think Tyrell is a character that kind of, I think you and like even Cody, who used to recap Mr. Robot with us, I think you guys were more captivated by Tyrell than I was.
Yes.
So I thought that this was good for me as well, for me to kind of find a way in, make him a little bit more interesting, even though I mean, I still don't think he's definitely not my favorite character or anything like that, but it's definitely more interesting.
It definitely humanized his character far more.
I think it's great and interesting that, like, if you're going to do this type of episode, I think it's interesting that Tyrell was the first character to have this kind of episode, with the exception of like some of the flashback stuff we've seen with Elliot, of course. But I mean, if you were going to take any other character and do this type of episode, I think it's interesting that they chose Tyrell. And again, maybe that's just because I am not as fascinated by him as you or maybe Cody, at least how I think you guys are. So in that way, I think it, again, puts another jolt and gives the show more life. And I'm coming off of what we thought was one of the best episodes. The show continues to be interesting. It didn't feel like it detracted. I wasn't bothered at all that we went from one of the best episodes to this. Because we're so early in the season, I think that we still have some room to do this kind of stuff as long as it's interesting and moving things forward. And I think that it did do that.
I'm very perplexed by this episode because I wasn't sure exactly how I felt about it, because overall I actually was entertained by it. I thought it was a good episode in the sense where it held my attention. I also found it interesting where we got it, because so much of this episode had to do, like, there's no way this episode for me could have lived in season 2, because first of all, we had to have the entire question of what was Tyrell doing this entire time. We had to have Bobby Cannavale's character.
Yeah.
Also, just some of the weight of certain decisions that were made, like that FBI, Baby Streep's partner, basically showing up, and I guess was that not the first time we knew that he was involved with the Dark Army? He's the guy that shot the police officer that arrested.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
The guy that was in the interrogation room in episode 4?
Yes. Yeah, the guy that...
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
The guy that was in the interrogation room.
Episode 4. This past week's episode. When they interrogated the guy from Med Society that they arrested. Is it that guy?
I can't remember if it's that same guy. This is
the guy that's in the safe house when Elliot breaks in.
No, not that guy. This is the character that was Baby Streep's partner. That was she's trying to go on the track of the Dark Army, and he's telling her, no, don't focus on them. Focus on Tyrell Wellick.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, like, we didn't know that. And just, I don't know, just a handful of other things going on that we just weren't privy to.
Right.
With this episode. What I don't care for is that I don't like, I don't have any attachment, I think, to a lot of the things that were going on, just because of the greater storyline in general. And it also just scares me because it is sort of flashbacks to season 2 and things that I was worried about or scared about. There is one moment in this episode that I loathed and literally made me want to turn it off and not watch the show again.
I think I have an idea what it is. Can
Go
I guess?
ahead.
Is it the fact that for no reason Tyrell felt scared to be in front of that police officer?
No.
Oh.
That was not it at all.
I was so mad at that moment because it was like Tyrell is completely unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And he's walking
That
through the
was stupid.
forest, and then it was completely his fault that cop was got onto him.
He looked like the Unabomber. He was trying.
Like,
he was. Yeah.
In no way would that cop think that was Tyrell Wellick if he just kept minding his own business and not been that way.
No, my issue was I had this issue with episode 1. The fact that they're now deciding to write Donald Trump in as a significant plot point of this show.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I did not at all think that was going to be significant.
So
I'm curious why you think this is a significant plot point, because I think it's completely just a marker of where we are.
well, I'm waiting.
But also,
I'm waiting to see how it plays out. But to legitimately have White Rose say that we have plans in place to have a new president, like it's so
I think that
heavy-handed.
So I did
for
not
me.
at all read into it as this is going to continue this season. I think it's just more of like a marker of where we are, but also just a wink.
Okay.
And a much slighter wink than what we got in the premiere. Which again,
It's not really a wink. It's like, hey guys.
the premiere screamed at us.
Right.
But what's fascinating about that point, and we speculated back then, which was, what did that mean? Because we were confused about the timeline.
Right.
But that's no longer the concern.
It actually
it's the fact
made way less sense in episode 1.
it makes less sense because, again, it was like Elliot stepped out of the show for a minute, even more so than when he addresses us as an audience. He stepped out of the show and addressed
Into our timeline.
us right here in October of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't know. No. I would much prefer them making the joke that Trump was planted by Dark Army.
Right.
I think that weave is more
I hope that would be the case.
I think that's way more clever than the premiere thing. Looking back on the premiere, that whole out of the box, no, that was just way too far out for me.
I agree with you 100% that I was much more frustrated by that. I think the frustration with this has to do with the fact that I refuse to think that they would do this, but I would hate for it to be like season 4 of Mr. Robot was like, White Rose literally putting Trump into power and Elliot is having to thwart this plan. And it's just like, I don't want it to be a thing.
That's not how I'm reading it too right now.
I'm not either necessarily. I'm just saying I don't want it to be a thing. Sam Esmail, I know you're listening to this. You have so much commentary in the show about capitalism, about materialism, about technology, how we deal with technology, privacy, all of that stuff. You don't need this. Anyways.
The show itself is...
It doesn't need Donald Trump to be a plot point in the show.
Yeah, the show speaks for itself
doesn't need
terms of its rebellion.
Donald Trump does not need to be the Will Bowers of Mr. Robot and just a plot point. Anyways, Stranger Things 2 was good. I don't know why people just don't like that show all of a sudden. Anyways, episode 3 took us away. I don't think I even have much else to really say about it other than the fact that it's interesting to me, at least to be maybe not reminded, maybe just shown for the first time that like Tyrell Wellick, he's kind of in love with Elliot. Yeah.
The whole like vocabulary of them being gods is new to me.
Kind of came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't know what sort of bond. I don't even necessarily know if I would call it a bond they shared.
But if you think about it, it still works because that foundation was placed in that opening scene that takes place in season 1. So it's like he created that ideology.
Right.
And it makes it seem like that is how he's been all along. And again, we got so little of Tyrell in season 2. So it's like it still can kind of make sense.
Right.
It feels new that that's his attitude, but he made it to where that's been his attitude all along, which I guess is pretty clever. But again, I think generally my thoughts on this episode are, it was interesting, fascinating. I liked it. It's not, certainly doesn't compare to, I think, the episode prior to it. But again, I continue to be engaged by this season. Oh my God. I was dying laughing seeing the guest appearance by Wallace Shawn. He came in.
The guy was doing coke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole montage of him asking all those questions.
Remind me a little bit of Blade Runner.
I thought that was fantastic and hilarious to see Wallace Shawn in the show. That was great. And but yeah.
Can I point out one thing real quick that I found fascinating? I'm kind of just thinking about it now, but I don't know if either it's never happened at all or it just happened in season 1 and it's been so long since we've seen it. But like, I don't really remember Mr. Robot having these sort of, Tyler Durden types of monologues and conversations that really showcases like how charismatic he is to where he can just convince people to follow him. Because obviously all these people are following him and they're buying into what he's saying. I know Elliot can have these conversations with us.
Yeah.
But I know, like, Tyrell's attachment to Elliot or Mr. Robot and the fact that he's been won over and wooed by him, I'm just sort of like lost with that. I don't, like, when have these conversations taken place? Why does he just really, really believe in what he's trying to do? I just sort of don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, that can kind of even go back to like season 1 a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, when did he recruit Romero? Like one day Elliot just stumbles into a world that Mr. Robot had already created for a little while.
And I know that's pretty like big picture stuff to like figure out everybody's motives, but we're sort of being asked to buy into it because and we'll talk about it with episode 4, but like how protected everybody is and how crucial certain people are to certain plans and people are willing to die for other people. It's just like,
yeah.
And it's not even necessarily a criticism. I'm just kind of like, okay, I guess I'm just supposed to just swallow this right now. But, Sam Esmail doesn't believe in plot. So, do you have anything else for episode 3 before we get on episode 4?
I don't think so.
All right. So, episode 4 literally picks up where episode 2 left off, back at that apartment. So happy Baby Streep is. Yeah, so happy Baby Streep is in this show. Just magnificent. But we also got a lot of Darlene.
I think that Darlene is toast.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Robot is going to kill Darlene this season.
Interesting. See, I don't know. But let me just tell you bigger picture stuff with this episode that I found fascinating. I want to see if you're here with me. This episode established a few things. One, the fact that Tyrell is now privy to the existence of a Mr. Robot and an Elliot.
Yes.
And he's frustrated by that, which makes sense coming from episode 2, seeing how invested he was, how bought into this he was, and to sort of be betrayed by this notion. We also have this whole thing of Angela's maybe quote unquote betrayal going on and being uncovered. One of the most fascinating things that this episode did, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but the episode showcased us that Mr. Robot actually lost his grip. He lost control. And to me, it seemed like because that idea now exists in the show, because it's not just it's nighttime, Mr. Robot's out, it's daytime, Elliot's out, that they can sort of, like I said, they can lose their grip, they can lose control. That now maybe Mr. Robot's place in all of this is a little bit more expendable and that they don't need him to move on with things. And now will Mr. Robot be forced to work together with Elliot?
So you're saying it's going to get to the point where, well, I don't know how this could occur because the only way to kill Mr. Robot is to kill Elliot, as far as we know.
Right. Except this season we're exploring more of, and we've seen Mr. Robot and Elliot be together and we've seen them interact with each other. This is really the first season where we're seeing them literally lead two different lives.
Right. So you mentioned the fact that they might not need Mr. Robot anymore, but I don't know how you get rid of him necessarily. Like, yeah, they could, like, Tyrell might be sick of the games and take things into his own hands and maybe bring Angela into it.
Right.
But Mr. Robot can just stop them, I guess. Well, I guess he wouldn't stop them if they're continuing the plan that he wanted activated to begin with.
Okay, I guess really it would be excluding him in general just from the plans.
This is everything that I think is interesting about the show right now. Because you have particular characters that are loyal to one side of Elliot and against the other.
That's right.
And it's fascinating. And because those characters have to struggle, like, because in their head it's got to be difficult. Like if for example, and I don't even think the show really does this, but if Darlene needed to do something to Elliot but couldn't because she had this soft place and couldn't betray the other side of him and Mr. Robot, I mean, that's interesting. And I think every single character in the show might have a little bit of that. Like, they care for one side of Elliot but not the other.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, we're seeing that with Angela, essentially.
It's actually, like, kind of getting confusing for me. It's like, I'm trying to remember, like, where it all fits together. Like, this person's
there's times when I've questioned, like, I've seen Elliot, but I've questioned, like, could this be Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
Because we haven't really seen that much. Like, we haven't seen it. If it's Mr. Robot there, we see Mr. Robot. If it's Elliot there, we see Elliot. But I mean, that's something that the show could pull on us. Like, actually,
they probably already have.
Absolutely.
There's no way. I mean, I think it's weird how in this episode, it's daytime. Angela comes into the kitchen and Mr. Robot's sitting there, and she knows it's him just by him saying, "It's me." Right. When I feel like in another scene, Elliot greeted someone with, and "It's me."
I think that's a misdirect that we should be aware of.
It's me. I heard both versions of the character say that, and then the opposing character in the scene picked up on who they were just based on that. So that confused me a little bit. Well, I don't know how they're supposed to know who's who, especially when she walked in on them in the daytime.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like that's a revelation in season 2 that we weren't really privy to. The fact that, because one thing that season 2 did was it established, like, Elliot and Mr. Robot having to live with one another.
Yeah.
But it turned out that Mr. Robot was doing things without Elliot knowing.
Yeah.
He was, quote unquote, losing time.
Right.
But, and now I'm trying to, like, come back around to this because now I'm confusing myself. In season 3, could we see that same dynamic where Mr. Robot is not aware of things that Elliot is doing behind his back? Like, for instance, and that's what I'm saying, the misdirect, even though we're being shown Mr. Robot, could Elliot just be saying that that's who he is? Could he be more knowledgeable? Because we saw that scene of Angela and Elliot they're rekindling their bond, and she was following them to sort of see what they were up to. Could he already be, knowledgeable of that information? I don't know. That you're right. It is fascinating about the show. Did you enjoy this episode as a whole?
Yeah, I did.
I did too. I thought the fourth episode was really, really good. I mean, I don't really know where you go with that. Like, if they were just going to excommunicate Mr. Robot from all of these plans, like, does Elliot become more in control? Because that's the only way I could see them doing it. Maybe they just start having meetings without him being there. Maybe you don't kill him, but you just...
Did you see the preview for next week's show?
I did not.
It is labeled as the most groundbreaking hour of Mr. Robot to date.
Did they label it that way?
Yes, USA labeled the preview as that.
Is it another Alf episode?
It is commercial free.
Ooh.
I thought that was so weird, and it looks like action packed.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't want to detract from where we were going. But yeah, I was really pumped. I'm really excited to see where it goes next week. But yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff happened, man. A lot of interesting revelations, and seeing, like, I think Darlene's toast. I think she's in a horrible spot. Horrible spot. I think she's so toast. I think Mr. Robot's gonna kill her.
Well, there's also some interesting scenes that we sort of certain people's position and how they're valued is sort of being illuminated as we go along. There was I don't remember, it might have been episode 3. You had Cisco making his reappearance.
Yeah.
And them having a conversation with him saying that she's protected, you're not. To what level, you know?
Yeah.
That is, obviously they have somebody in the FBI. See, I think Darlene is protected here. I think when they went and shot up that cafe or whatever.
I'm talking about Mr. Robot going after her, not anybody else. I think Mr. Robot will kill Darlene.
That is an interesting dynamic we've sort of already explored when he scared her and whatnot.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, why did I pick Mr. Robot? Because Elliot's the one that I think Elliot is afraid of Darlene right now, but it depends because Elliot isn't an angry person, so I think there could be a way where it's actually channeled through Mr. Robot. Well, I just thought it would be really.
He was angry that she bugged his house.
Yeah, but it was more. I think he was hurt more than like.
That's true.
I think it would just be really, really interesting for the show, going all the way back to the fact that there's so many more dynamics between these characters because they're dealing with two different people. I think that idea would capitalize on what the show stands for right now. Like to visibly see Elliot kill Darlene, but it's actually Mr. Robot. That way, when Elliot comes to the pain that he feels if he ever finds out that he killed his sister or Mr. Robot, like I think that is what the show stands for right now. Yeah. So I don't know how we get to that point, but I'm intrigued by that idea.
There is another aspect to Elliot's psychology that was sort of uncovered with this episode. The fact that, and I've asked this question too, so I'm glad they address it. If he really wants to stop this and he really doesn't want to be involved in it, why doesn't he just call in some sort of tip or turn himself in for it? But we sort of get that dialogue that he has. There's still a part of him that either where he wants to stop it himself. He wants to take, a sort of vigilante sort of style of thing, but he sort of questions that decision or is there a part of me that wants to see it through deep down inside? I think that's a fascinating dynamic. I like that the show becomes just as much about psychology and about the character dealing with his issues as it does with just sort of the technological sort of mythology that's going on as well. It's executed much better this season than it was last season. We weren't like living inside the mind of Elliot so much. We're actually seeing him live his day-to-day life and wrestle with all these things. And that's it feels more grounded. I
totally forgot that Price was still alive. I don't know why I thought he was dead. He annoys me. I hate the sound of his voice.
Yeah.
So anyway, we saw that Angel is going to have him fired from E-Corp. Trying to think of what else we found out.
I'm still with all the stuff that's going on in the show and as sort of interwoven as everything is. There are times when I sort of forget what people's motives are. Like I can't really remember why Angela is doing what she's doing.
Yeah, me neither.
Sorry, somebody can be annoyed in the comment section on YouTube. It's fine. But yeah, I did enjoy this episode a lot. I'm enjoying this season a lot so far, and I'm super intrigued by what you said.
It's definitely turned around. Preview. I want to ask you a question. So, how do you explain this to someone who's never seen Mr. Robot before, or maybe I'm not talking about what the show's about.
It's Fight Club on TV.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about the hills and valleys. So and this is actually just a broad question about television in general, not just Mr. Robot. So you have a phenomenal season, and you want someone to make it to season 3, episode 4, with a lackluster season 2. Do you, Jaye Williams, try to convince someone to watch that entire season? Does one bad season mean you don't recommend a show at all? Like,
I've always recommended the show, even during season 2 and after it was over and after I thought that it wasn't as great.
It's just, I think it'd be hard maybe it's not hard for you to recommend it, but I think it'd be hard for anyone to listen to you. If you have to tell them, look, this first season is explosive. the second season is very lackluster, but wait till you get to season 3.
I
I feel like that's hard. I feel like hearing that is hard for anybody.
I've also never. Well, two things. One, I've never binged the show, so I don't know how that sort of experience would be. Maybe it's fine binged. I have no idea. It just wasn't as enjoyable for me watching it week to week. I will say this though about the show. I remember for season 2, there was a buzz. I mean, coming off those Emmy wins and whatnot, and just the fire that it sort of caught, the marketing behind it, people were really excited for season 2. I feel like we're back at season 1 where nobody is watching this show. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this show outside of you and I. Not one person.
It's true. I can't, other than the official after show for Mr. Robot.
And
I know TV Time has a Mr. Robot show. But
from time to time, The Watch will talk about it as well. But, you throw in Stranger Things, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true.
I haven't heard anybody talk about the show.
I'd be curious to see what the numbers are. Maybe I might look that up here in a minute.
Well, I think the good news is, I think the thing that really helped out season 2 and people getting excited for it was the award stuff. And I think so far, at least, I mean, it's way too soon to say like, hey, this thing's going to get nominated. I have no idea, but
yeah,
stranger things have happened. Like Stranger Things and The Leftovers not getting nominated for anything.
And Game of Thrones not getting nominated for anything. Well, that was their fault.
Yeah, that's true. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I do want to drop one little tiny thing on you that sort of relates to that. Also going back to our previous after party conversations, which some people might not know what that is. Did you know? So we're about to come up on Grammy nominations season. Like they're about to do the Grammy nominations at the end of this month. Did you know that Awaken My Love by Childish Gambino is eligible to be nominated this year?
Why is that a fun fact?
It's just crazy because it came out at the end of last year, and it's just been out for so long, and it feels,
you're just saying
old,
okay.
It feels old news, and if I had to guess, it's probably going to be nominated for a lot of stuff.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's just funny.
I don't know. It doesn't feel that old to me.
I mean, Adele won all those Grammys last year, and her album also came out after, because I think the season ends in October. Like that's the cutoff date for things. But
yeah, it doesn't feel that weird to me. I hope it does well. I would love to root him on, even though I'm not that crazy about that album very much at all, really. But yeah,
if he had a movie that came out, he could have won an Emmy, a Grammy, and an Oscar in the same.
It's true.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for listening to. How do we end this? Because we just end it, right?
Just tell people where we are.
This is the end of 2 different podcasts.
We just tell people where they can find us.
You can find me at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of stuff changing. A lot of stuff getting updated, slowly but surely. And yeah, that's all I want to do.
Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Pick us some of our t-shirts. Jay, we got to get on our, and when I say we, I mean you. We got to come up with our Mr. Robot themed t-shirt.
Yes.
For all of our Mr. Robot listeners and fans.
Maybe I'll do that.
Evan DeGraff, was he the one that was trying to keep us on our toes?
I think so.
I think it was Evan.
Yeah.
We'll get a Mr. Robot shirt up for you ASAP. You can check those out. Is the domain back up? Or is it just TeePublic?
It'll be up tomorrow.
Go to TeePublic and search Sight and Sound, and you will find our store. What's the TeePublic link? TeePublic.com/SightSoundPod?
Yeah, sure.
Is that even a thing?
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, do the right thing. Go get a shirt. We love y'all.
Goodbye.